Love. Such a fun topic. So our theme for February is simply we are here for love, and the topic today is love is a way of life. And in fact, that's really going to be the energy of our whole month, is love as a way of life. And so all month we'll be talking about how to cultivate love as a way of life. As I was being with this, I saw a YouTube video. I love modern technology. So about what love as a way of life can look like. Just a moment. It was about a couple. They've been together for decades, and now they were elders, and the husband had gotten Alzheimer's, and the wife has been taking care of him. And he forgets her name a lot, and obviously that's Alzheimer's, you can't remember. And there was one day, it was Mother's Day, and he disappeared, and she didn't know what happened to him. So she was worried about him, called the police. The police started, and they interviewed the police. It was a great YouTube. So and the police are looking for him, and they find him. He's wandering the street, and they pick him up, and he had no idea what his address was. He didn't know where he was at the moment. He was completely lost, but he was very clear about one thing. He said, I have to get flowers today. I have to get flowers today. It's Mother's Day, and I always get my wife flowers on Mother's Day. That ever since their very first child was born, every Mother's Day he had bought her a bouquet of flowers. And so they were told, the police officers were told to take him straight home, and they almost did, but they stopped off at a flower shop. And it's so sweet because they have the video of the flower shop of them being in the store and getting it, and the video from the store, and it shows he doesn't have enough money, and you see the cop sort of sliding the rest of the money to the cashier so they can't see. So he goes home with a bouquet of flowers, and she just said, it broke her. She said, I just saw his heart that transcended all this memory. His heart remembered, on Mother's Day, he brings me flowers. That's love as a way of life. God bless you too. And yet, that's what we want. We fill up because that's how we want to live our life, is to have many moments of that love. And yet, love isn't just an experience. It's not just a moment. As I was thinking, we in our Zen meditation classes, we have many conversations, and one of the things I was mentioning was that, we have many of us have had non-ordinary state experiences. And for me, it's like traveling. I've never traveled the world. I've traveled in the United States, but I haven't traveled the world. There's people who've traveled the world, and they come back and they tell stories. I always have friends who seem to live all over the world, because even though I don't do it, I live vicariously through them. But my experience of the people who travel is they leave and they have these experiences, and they come back and they have a shift of awareness. They have a wider perspective on the world. Their mind has opened in a little bit different way than if they had just stayed in this world. To me, Twitter is my world travel. No, I'm kidding. I find the world. But it's nice to have different perspectives. And that's how I feel about the non-ordinary state experiences that I've had and some other people have had. Not everybody travels in that way or has those experiences, but they give us a shift of perception, a new way of looking at the world. So whether the non-ordinary state experience is in your body and suddenly everything becomes light, or the solid things swirl around. I was just thinking about I've left the planet a couple times, and there was one time I almost left, but I was afraid. I never really thought about this till this past week, and I felt I was leaving the Earth's gravitational force, and I pulled right back into my body because I was afraid if I left the gravitational force, I would never be able to get back. And it wasn't until later that just this past week, I was realizing the 2 times I did leave the planet, I always had a guide. A guide was very intentionally taking me outside of the planet. But those are So all these experiences they're interesting, and if there's other people who've had them, it's like people who've traveled the world. You start sharing them, and you say, oh, this is what I've got from it. But what I've become very clear about is they opened me, but they didn't change my life. They gave me a different perspective, but they didn't do for me what my first and original experience, which most of you have been coming regularly, have heard many times. And the reason why you've heard it many times, because even though I've had these other experiences, it was the one that's had the biggest, it's the motivating factor of my entire life. And that was when I was a child, for those of you who are new, just an experience of becoming one with the Christ and this infinite oceanic love, that this love was transcendent and greater than all life form, and yet infused in all life form. And I was in the midst, and it was beyond anything, obviously, that we can ever humanly talk about. And it was that love. It was this infinite divine love, this transcendent love. Now that has impacted my life. That, for me, was different than just an experience that I've had, an experience that like the world traveling or the non-ordinary state. They're cool experiences and you can talk about it, but it didn't touch me in the way that the divine love has. And I was thinking about that, and what was that? Why did that infuse me? And I've been sending out for the people in the Zen class these quotes from a Zen master named Shunryu Suzuki, who came over to the United States in the 1960s and was a Zen priest in the Zen Center in San Francisco. And he was telling, one student was saying, I'm meditating, I've been meditating now for a long time, and I've had all these experiences, but they never last. They come and go. What's the use, he said. And Shunryu Suzuki says, no use. That there's really no point. But if you keep practicing, you start realizing there's something underneath. And that underneath is always there. And that's every mystical tradition. If you look at the mystics and read the mystics of every mystical tradition, they all say, don't get lost in the psychic phenomenon. We get so excited if we've had all this energy is moving around, or I see visions, or something amazing happens, and they're all saying, ignore that, because that's not it. That's not what's real. We're not here. He says, enlightenment is not a state experience. It's not an experience that comes and goes. It's ever present. It's in, through, and as all creation all of the time. Right now, it is fully alive in this moment. We don't need to have some big, great mystical experience or non-ordinary state experience. It is always ever present. And the more we continue and stay conscious in the moment, in the present moment of what is arising, we can start experiencing that which transcends even the psychic phenomena, even the great big experiences or world traveling. It doesn't matter if you're in another country or this country. It doesn't matter. It's always ever present. It's there. So the question becomes, if there's this love, when I think of that love, that divine love, the question I started asking myself, and I asked in the Zen class, was how do we cultivate that love? Like I love Zen meditation, I love Hindu practices, but I really wanted to know, what are the practice to really know divine love as the ever-present reality of all life? And George and Gail always get gold stars because I take a question and then they go home and talk about it. And then they come back with the answer the next week, and it's really great, so thank you. And their answer was, love has to be in relationship. Love is about, it's hard to really know love without someone else. And that's a really deep and profound answer, so thank you. And that's actually true. I was listening to a conversation with a Hindu and a Buddhist and a Jewish rabbi. And they were not talking about religion, their religions. They were talking about their spiritual enlightenment, what spiritual awakening looks like from their spiritual paths, not the theology aspect of it. And I was listening to the Hindu and I was listening to the Buddhist, and I was very familiar with everything they were saying. It's this beingness, it's this presence, this peace. And then the rabbi started speaking, and my heart just opened, because what he started talking about was being in love with the divine and being in relationship with the divine. And I've been so immersed at that time in the Eastern traditions that I forgot about this relationship. And so I want to look at it in two ways: relationship with the divine and relationship with each other, and cultivating divine love. Divine love is about being in relationship with the divine. Whatever that word is for you, whether it's God, whether it's love, whether it's your higher self, but the realization that that love is in, through, and as all creation. It contains all time. It contains all space. It contains all the galaxies and billions of stars, all the cosmos, and it's beyond all of that. It's beyond anything we could ever humanly conceive, and yet it's more intimate to us than our very breath. It has known every step of our journey, even before we were born into this body. It knows everything about us, every thought we've ever had, every feeling we've ever had, unconscious as well as conscious. It knows everything about us and loves us and loves us and loves us. It's just there loving us. So being in relationship is having a conscious conversation with it, being in a dialogue. Oh, and this love is infinitely intelligent too. Love and intelligence are one. And so we're in a dialogue with it. If our book of the month is a return to love, and if you notice, there's just a natural place that Marianne Williamson talks about is just talking to God. I surrender this to God. Well, to surrender, it's to surrender to something that's deeply loving, that loves us, that we trust, that we feel safe in. So we surrender. So if we want to cultivate what does love look like in our everyday life, first we need to look at what's our relationship with love, with not just our human love, but with the divine love. Are we in dialogue with it? I love Barbara King. She'd get up there and say, oh yeah, me and God are talking all the time. I go to my closet, hey God, what do I wear today? Hey God, what do I eat today? She was just constant dialogue. That's how she was bringing love into her life, was just in constant dialogue with this divine presence, and expected responses, expected there to be this constant communion. That's an openness and availability. But there is a surrenderness to it. There's a surrenderness to this love, which requires humility, because it recognizes that whatever love that little Harriet has, it's nothing compared to that love. It is nothing. So there is that humility to say, I can know love. I'm not going to be totally say I don't know anything about love, but whatever I know about love, it's tiny compared to this transcendent love. And so there's a effortless humility as we start to realize that there's a love that knows so much more about how to love. So I love where she talks about, God, I surrender this relationship to you. I surrender this conversation to you. I surrender this service to you. You know so much more than I could ever possibly know. I just keep surrendering. So this is how we begin to cultivate our relationship with love as a way of life, is dialogue and being in relationship with the divine love. And sometimes that can be a little abstract. So we also want to talk about how can I do it with just other people? And so there are three things that I think we can really start developing and nurturing love in our daily life in a practical way. And the three qualities that we begin with, and I think it's just the beginning process, are gentleness, kindness, and patience. Just imagine being gentle with your work, with your to-do list. How many people feel constricted when you feel your to-do list versus gentle? You look at it and you feel gentleness. Where you feel gentle with your financial life. You feel gentle with your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health. You feel gentle with your colleagues. And especially you practice it with the ones that you don't like or you don't want to be around. You don't pretend that you want to be around them. This isn't where we pretend we feel something other than what we feel. But if I know that I don't like being around someone, I own that, first of all, and then I'm just gentle with that whole experience. I know some people who believe very strongly that the Bible is the only way. And we have a great relationship, but we're very clear we don't talk about theology. And I'm very clear that they think I'm lost. And we just ignore that part of the relationship. It's a nice relationship, but it's not the highest possibility of people who have different views. And then I have another friend, who used to be a neighbor of ours. He's Greek Orthodox. and really practices humility. He loves the Greek Orthodox monks, and he really practices that humility. And if I had to describe him in one word, I would say it's gentle. That he and I both know that we have different theologies, and it doesn't matter because we don't meet there. We meet there in just love. Neither one of us has to be right. Neither one of us is trying to prove the other wrong. We're only there to say there's something bigger than both of us, that knows much more than both of us. And so we just enjoy each other's company, not from our theology, but just from we love each other in our humility. I'm no more right than he is, he's no more right than me, and it's genuine. So the other relationship, it's there, and we're nice to each other, but I can feel the underlying judgment. We're here, I don't feel any judgment. I don't feel like deep, really, he's just judging me because I don't believe in the Greek Orthodox way. I don't feel that at all. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about, kids or daily life. It's not that we're always talking, we do talk about our spiritual stuff, but we also talk about our kids, and it's so harmonious because he is so gentle. That's the word I can use. He's gentle, he's humble. Humility and gentleness come together. So that's the first quality. How do we cultivate gentleness in our life? And so throughout your day, with your loved ones, am I being gentle? We're so afraid of that being a weak place to be when in fact it's a very powerful place to be. The second one is kindness. And to me, that's an action. So gentleness is a beingness, and kindness is an action where we start reaching out random acts of kindness, where we actually act on that, regardless of what we're now, again, we're beyond philosophy. We don't know what people think or believe, but we reach out past our borders and do something kind. I remember when the Dalai Lama came out with his statement, "My only religion is kindness." I was disappointed. I thought, well, that just seems so much less than love. But it is a building block to love. We're talking about how to make love a daily part of our life. It's a way of life. First, we find out, am I at least kind? If we just start practicing kindness, even when we don't feel like being kind, that's when the practice gets serious. I don't feel like going out of my way today for somebody else. I don't feel like making an extra effort, and yet I do it. We've just went past our own border. We went past that small identity into something bigger than ourselves. We've gone past our habit patterns to something new, and we've become loving without even just by doing an act of kindness. It's an act. So gentleness and kindness. And then the last one is the one where I got stuck for a while, I have to admit. Stuck for a while. Patience. I didn't want to be stuck. So it's interesting in the Corinthians reading today, I've always loved it. Love is ultimate. That's the only thing that matters. But I never really liked that second paragraph. Because love is patient and kind, and it's not boastful, and it bears all things, it endures all things. I'm like, oh, how depressing. I wanted, love is going to change the world. Love is going to transform you. Love is vital and will free you, set you free. Instead of, no, love is patient and endures. I'm like, that is so uninspiring. I want a more active and aggressive love, thank you. And so it's taken me a long time on this journey to recognize how important patience is. Not how important patience is, how God is patience, how love is patient. We can't hurry the river, as they say. You can't push the river. I really started thinking about it more with one of my times outside of the planet. I was told to learn integral theory. That's why I talk about it a lot. His name is Ken Wilber, is the main articulator of integral theory. And as I was studying it, there was one of the teachers in that circle would talk a lot about urgency. That and he saw himself as a guru. I don't know if he does anymore. Saw himself as a guru, and was saying that for spiritual evolution, we need to have a sense of urgency. And I was listening to another talk that if we want to change, often we don't make changes until there's a crisis, until something happens, and then we have to do it. And we've known all along we were supposed to do it. We just don't do it until there's a crisis. So he said we need to develop a sense of urgency if we want to change, a feeling like we don't have all the time in the world. We got to feel like, no, it's got to happen now. It's got to happen now. If it's going to happen, it's got to happen now. So I was with all of this. That's why the patience thing has been hard for me, because I wasn't sure, but I've been patient and I've watched. And I've watched how teachers who are constantly pushing their students to let go of their ego, stop, get over yourself and just surrender and try to push their students to do that. Ultimately, the students feel abused. They have to go off and heal from the pushing. And there's some students who are okay with it, but it doesn't have, but then they become aggressive in the same sort of way. It sort of gets passed down. I look at Yogananda, and it's a wonderful example. His teacher, he was very loving and open, and his teacher very rarely said nice things about him and was always sort of pushing him. That was sort of it's part of the tradition in Eastern traditions is to push your students. And the Sri Yukteswar was his guru, and when Sri Yukteswar made his transition and came back and visited Yogananda, one of the things he said was, "I will never speak harshly to you again. I was way too hard on you. You deserve nothing but love." And for me, that was now he was seeing from the eyes of eternity. We feel like we need to push things to make them better, and what happens is we end up constricting and we're not allowing love happen. Now, crises do happen sometimes because we don't change. And here's what I've really noticed, is we really love to beat ourselves up. So the common conversation that I hear all the time is, I knew better. I mean, first we have, I didn't know better, and we have that as an excuse. But then we eventually get to know better, and that's no longer excuse. I knew better, and I still did the wrong thing, and I kept doing the wrong thing over and over. And so when the crisis happens, man, why didn't I make those changes? And we do that to ourselves individually, and I've become very conscious of how we do that as a culture. We love to blame. We know better. We love to beat ourselves up. Look what we've done to this earth, man. We are violent human beings, and we've destroyed our earth atmosphere, and we're cruel to animals, and we're this and that, and we're always beating ourselves up for just not being saints. And that in of itself is not love. Love has never judged us. Love has never said, why didn't you you knew better, why didn't you do this? That is not what love is. Love isn't saying, oh, you human beings, you just keep being violent and doing these things, and you even know better and you're still doing it. Bad human beings. It doesn't do that. But we do that. That's the human mind. That's when you know you're in human mind versus God's mind. I love Marianne's her practice that she started to say is, how would God look at this situation? How would love look at this situation? That was my actually very first practice that a minister gave me as I was consciously starting on this path. He said, write about yourself in the third person as if you were God writing about yourself. He said, don't worry about whether it is or not. Just write about yourself. And what I found was that God was so much more compassionate to me than I was to myself. That when I was imagining myself out here writing about myself, there was infinite patience, infinite kindness, infinite gentleness. What if we did that with our whole planet, when we just beat ourselves up for all the things that we do wrong, and we just started being patient? Love endures all. I hated that statement, and now I love it. It endures all. It is always there. Love is the only thing that lasts. The last paragraph, we didn't read it because I didn't want to make the reading too long, is that everything else dies away, but the one thing that lasts is love. Marianne Williamson says it, when we realize love is all that matters and nothing else really matters but this love, because that's what lasts. Jesus said, lay your treasures up in heaven. What's heaven? It's love. That in fact, living from this place of patience and kindness and gentleness reminds us who we really are. That we are made in the image and likeness of love already. We are already beings of love. And every time we practice kindness and gentleness and patience, we are reminding ourselves who we are. And we get to let go of all those other identities, all those false identities, and just let ourselves be, without having to beat ourselves up. And as we surrender, and that's the process of surrendering, and gentleness and kindness and patience happen the more we surrender. So it's the relationship with the divine and our relationship with other all starts to happen, the surrendering and the humility and the gentleness and the kindness and the patience when we're not surrendering. We know we're supposed to surrender, I can't surrender. But all of that starts to lead to a reality where we do start to move ourselves into alignment, where we do start to find ourselves shifting and making healthier choices in every place of our life, because now we're not making my choices, I'm making love's choices. The more we surrender, the more we're kind, the more we're gentle, the more we're patient, we're going to find things do flow. That doesn't mean our life will be perfect, but it will move more in the flow, and when the challenging times come, we don't start beating ourselves up. We're patient, we're kind, we're gentle. We've been practicing. There's no way to be patient and kind and gentle without that softening of the heart, without that melting, without that letting go. So my invitation to all of us, this week is to practice patience in every area of your life, in all your relationships. Just be patient. Be kind. I have to tell you, I was in a judging mind this past week. I had these things going on, and then I forgot the main point. The main point. No, I didn't forget the main point. But it's what I put in the main point. When we put our attention on increases, we put our attention on love. The way we cultivate love in our everyday life is just put our attention on it, right? We all know that basic principle. What we put our attention on increases. So I'm in my judging mind, and then I get to joyfully start thinking about this talk and reading books, and suddenly everything, just all the things that were bothering me just start melting away. That just putting our attention on it starts to heal us. There's nothing to be healed but God to be revealed, Ernest Holmes says. That there's only God, there's only love, and so the only healing there is to forget that we're anything else other than love. And when that we're healed. When we know that we're love, we're healed. So this week, right? Dialogue. What's your relationship with love? What's your relationship? Are you in a relationship with the divine? Having a conversation? Love is cultivated by relationship. And what is your relationship with the world and with yourself? Gentle, kind, and patient.